What's good, y'all? It's your boy HB with Final Round. We got to talk about the spectacle this weekend. Logan Paul versus Floyd Money Mayweather. Now, look, man. I want to make this clear. I'm not saying that, or I'm not trying to argue or make a case that I think Logan Paul is going to win this fight, or that I even think he stands a chance. I'm not even saying that he has a 5% chance at winning. But what I'm trying to do in this video, hypothetically speaking, if I were Logan Paul or if I were his trainer, what would be my blueprint? What would be my strategy going into this fight? Okay, what would it be? To give myself, or if I was his trainer, hypothetically speaking, giving my fighter the best possible chance at winning the fight, even if it only raises my chances by 5%. I will take that. I will take that all day, every day. Because when you're Logan Paul, you ain't got nothing to lose. You ain't got nothing to lose in this fight. Floyd has everything to lose. Well, I mean, I don't think he'd be taking this fight if he seriously thought he was at risk, right? Because Mayweather, on the back end of his career, he knew better than to go and take on a guy like Earl Spence or Terrence Crawford. He wouldn't take that risk, and that's exactly why he keeps on saying in these interviews that they keep on asking him, "Oh, you're gonna come back and fight Canelo? You're gonna come back and entertain any other real boxers or big time boxers?" And he's like, "No, I'm retired." He's literally saying he's retired. So I mean, that gives you an insight to how he feels about this fight and what's gonna happen. He doesn't really think he's in any sort of danger. I don't think he would take this fight if he thought he was in danger. I mean, Floyd could go to MMA and probably make even more money than, probably 3 times the money that he's making now, which is crazy, because everybody would love to see Mayweather step in an MMA ring and get obliterated. But he's not that stupid. He knows that if he walked into an octagon, he would get taken out. But nonetheless, Logan Paul's in a very unique position. I think there were 2 other fighters that went up against Mayweather that were kind of had these unique circumstances, okay? And I believe that was Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor. The common denominator amongst all 3 of these guys, Logan Paul, Manny Pacquiao, and Conor McGregor, is that they come with very big fan bases. Now, McGregor and Pacquiao, obviously, probably a lot more than Logan Paul, but because they're pulling countries behind them, the Philippines, and then you have Conor McGregor, Pacquiao, the Philippines, and Conor McGregor, Ireland. No, Logan Paul, we're weird here in America. So we don't tend to be as united when it comes to backing our athletes, because it's somewhat of a melting pot of a country. But he's still coming with a huge fan base. His YouTube following, he's very popular. Him and his brother, they're well known. Oh, 1 second, my dog's eating my damn curtains. Hey, get off those curtains. Hey, none. But yeah, I apologize for that, and I apologize for the quality of my screen, because I got a crack screen, so I apologize for that. I'm getting my phone fixed soon. So, but anyways, Logan Paul's nonetheless coming with a very big fan base. There's a lot of people supporting him, and even the people that don't necessarily know him, there's going to be a lot of casuals watching this who want to see him win, who want to see the upset. There's a lot of people that hate Floyd Mayweather and just want to see if he's going to lose. And he's an underdog as well. There's a part of, I think all of us, even the Mayweather fans, that would love to see the biggest upset in sports history. It'd be like being in an alternate universe if we saw Logan Paul somehow win this fight. But let's talk about the strategy, because Logan Paul is coming in with superficial advantages. And I say superficial, sounds crazy, but I say superficial because against the guy like Mayweather, of Mayweather's caliber, okay, in experience, the advantages that Logan Paul is coming in with really don't mean anything. Okay, now if Logan Paul was a professional boxer for a long time and for years, and he had lots of experience, then yeah, those are huge advantages. Those are advantages that they wouldn't even sanction this fight if Logan Paul was a really experienced boxer, but he's not. He only has what, 2 fights, and one with headgear, and he lost both or something like that. I don't know. And it wasn't even up against an opponent who's a real boxer. I'm not saying Logan Paul can't throw hands. I'm not saying he's not a fighter. I do think he is. Now, to what level? I would still say maybe amateur. It's hard for me to tell because I haven't seen him, who he's sparring and how much he's improved. But he's obviously nowhere on Mayweather's level. But he is coming in with superficial advantages. What, 20 to 30 pounds over Mayweather? He's going to be taller. He's going to be rangier. He's a fairly good athlete, but I'm not going to count that as an advantage. Some people would say age. He's so much younger, but once again, this is the cool thing about boxing. You can overcome age. You can overcome gender. You can overcome, athletic ability. If you're if you're more skilled than your opponent, if you're a lot more skilled than your opponent, you can overcome those disadvantages or the advantages your opponent might be coming with. I don't think age is even considered a superficial advantage for Logan Paul, because I've learned in boxing, actually, the older you are, the better you are when you're going up against opponents who aren't as experienced as you. And Mayweather has not slowed down to the point to where he's a feeble old man, right? Like Bernard Hopkins was taking out guys half his age, while he was on the back end of his career. Guys who were champions. Now, when he got to his last fight and he was facing a young gun, you could see his body betrayed him. His body was done. He looked like an old man. But I don't think Mayweather's at that point. You've seen him on the pads. He's always taking care of his body. I don't think he's aged to the point to where he's like this helpless guy. So I can't even give Logan Paul a superficial advantage in terms of age. But nonetheless, Logan Paul has to look at these things and say, okay, these are what I see as my advantages. This is what makes this fight interesting to some degree or level, is that I'm coming in with these advantages. So how do I use them to give myself the best possible chance? But let's pause there. Let's go back to the common denominator of Manny Pacquiao, Conor McGregor, and Logan Paul. They all come with huge fan bases. Why is that important? It's important because if you can take Mayweather to scorecards, and if it's a close fight, and if you come with the right game plan and make it a close fight, that fan base can help you pull the victory out. Okay, why do I say that? Because you look at all 3 of those guys, they have big fan bases. Boxing is a business at the end of the day. I'm sorry, that it is what it is. I hate to talk about it this way. I love the sport. I'm a competitor in it, but it's a business. It's about money. And you are not going to take the belt, or you're not going to beat a fighter who's a cash cow unless you convincingly beat him. And if you don't convincingly beat him, it's like when you go and fight for the title, you have to take that belt away from your opponent, okay? Regardless of the circumstances. But, especially if you don't have a big name. Like, if you don't have a big name and you're kind of unknown, and you're trying to win a belt from a guy like, say, Floyd Mayweather, you better win convincingly. You better get a KO, a TKO or something, or just absolutely outbox your opponent. Because if you don't, you're not going to get that W on the scorecards. They're not going to give up their cash cow. If you don't convincingly win, they're not going to give up their cash cow for some no-named guy who's not easy to promote. That's not going to generate a lot of money for the sport. We're talking about the economy here, okay? So they're going to protect their asset. But if you're Manny Pacquiao, you're Logan Paul, or you're Conor McGregor, you bring just as much money, or if not even more. People want to see you win. People want to see more fights with you. So you have a little leverage and leeway. If you can take it to the scorecards, if those guys like Conor McGregor and Pacquiao did take it to the scorecards, but he didn't necessarily get it close enough to where he could leverage his fan base to give him getting the W. If you can get it to the scorecards, you could possibly get a close call. Take your W the way you can get it. That's why Mayweather is undefeated. He takes his W any way he can get it. He doesn't care as long as he wins. Doesn't care if it's boring, and that's why he's undefeated. And if guys took the same approach facing him, especially Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor, they probably could have got different results. Let me talk about the strategy and I'll kind of tie everything together. I know I'm a little all over the place right now, but let's kind of tie this together. I keep on hearing people saying, oh, you got to knock out Floyd. You got to come with the one punch, you stand a puncher's chance, go in there and throw the kitchen sink at him and hope one lands. That's, when people say that, that's like against a guy like Mayweather, that's like winning the lottery. Now think about that. How hard is it? It's impossible. It's damn near impossible. Is there a chance? Is there a small chance that you could be the lucky motherfucker who wins the lotto ticket? Yes. How likely? Almost impossible. Almost impossible. It's the same thing. You trying to land one big punch against this guy it's like winning the lottery, man. Yes, maybe he comes in there and he takes it for granted and he gets caught slipping, but I don't see that, man. It's like winning the lotto. So we need to stop with this whole be aggressive and try to take him out and bully Floyd Mayweather. It doesn't work. Okay, we've seen this approach numerous times and it doesn't work. The hardest fights for Floyd Mayweather have been the ones where his opponents tried to box with him. I'm not saying, and a lot of people will respond, oh, you can't box with Mayweather. That's crazy. Why would you try to box with Mayweather? Look, I'm not saying you're going to outbox the guy, but from my examining his past fights, his toughest fights have been from opponents who've tried to outbox him. And okay, you don't like me saying outbox. Okay, outpoint him at least. Try to. Now, will he make the adjustments? Will he find a way to overcome? Most likely, yes. But those fights where he's had opponents who've tried to box with him have put him in very uncomfortable positions and at risk of losing. Like, legitimately. Look at Miguel Cotto. Look at Emmanuel Augustus and Mayweather. Look at Zab Judah. Hell, DeMarcus Corley had some moments. You look at these fights with guys who tried to box with Mayweather. Even Manny Pacquiao at times, even though he didn't have the best game plan, which I was kind of disappointed with Freddie Roach and Pacquiao. But you look at all those guys who boxed with him. Sugar Shane Mosley, I almost caught him. But that wasn't a result of a lucky punch. That was boxing. That was good boxing technique and strategy that almost put Mayweather out. Those were the hardest fights for Floyd Mayweather. The easiest ones are the guys who like to walk forward, like Ricky Hatton, and recklessly come in and throw punches, because Floyd's a counterpuncher. He's a defensive fighter. He loves that. His shoulder roll is built for guys who like to come in strong and, don't consider distance, and they just get countered all night and picked apart. Easy money, easy fight for him. But the hardest fights were the ones where his opponent is trying to outbox him. So, that being said, with Manny Pacquiao, I was disappointed in Freddie Roach and in Manny Pacquiao's strategy, because it seemed like they were more oriented towards knocking Floyd out. Understandably so. Manny Pacquiao is a phenomenal boxer, one of the greatest of all time, and he has the speed, he has the power. He's a southpaw. He's quick, he's fast, he throws combinations. I get that. But Manny Pacquiao, I don't know why they didn't take it round by round. And this is the strategy I think Conor McGregor should have applied, and I think Logan Paul should apply. And especially Conor McGregor and Logan Paul, because they're coming in the bigger fighter and more rangy. But with Manny Pacquiao, no, he wasn't coming in the bigger fighter or rangier, but he had the boxing skills, right? And I didn't know why Freddie Roach and him didn't take it round by round and say, hey, we're going to try to outpoint this guy each round. Maybe we come in strong, land the combination. Doesn't even matter if we land a good combination. We have a big following and support. The fans are going to go crazy and they did, when Pacquiao would throw a combination and hit Floyd Mayweather. Even if it wasn't landing flush, the fans were going crazy. That plays into the psychology of the judges. That plays into the psychology of the fans, to the untrained eye. Yes, if you know boxing, if you understand it, you know Floyd's rolling those punches, or he's going with them, or he's blocking them, or catching them with his shoulder or arm, whatever. But still, to the untrained eye, you think Manny Pacquiao's landing flush, and you're cheering, and the fans are getting loud, and that could play into the judge's mind, like, oh, Manny Pacquiao's, the aggressor. He's landing punches, he's throwing more punches, and they may perceive that as Manny Pacquiao has an advantage. And for me, if I was Manny Pacquiao, I would have just tried to steal rounds. Box, and steal rounds. Okay, at the end of every round, okay, I'm going to try to throw a combination or a flurry and try to steal the round. Take it to the scorecards. Or put Mayweather in an uncomfortable position to where it gets late to the late rounds and he's thinking, man, do I need to convince the judges that I have control of this fight? Do I need to do something significant to show or get the lead back on the scorecards? Because even Floyd Mayweather's dad in the middle of that fight was with Pacquiao had a sense of urgency, like, Floyd, you need to pick up the pace. You need to do a little bit more. Like, you need to convince. They're going to steal this fight from you. And that's the position I would try to put Floyd Mayweather in. I'm going to try to steal round by round, outpoint Floyd Mayweather, okay? And then hopefully get him to an uncomfortable position in the later rounds to where he starts getting a little bit desperate and putting himself in risky positions to where maybe I could exploit. And even if, regardless of whether Mayweather makes that adjustment or not, or feels the urgency to convince the judges or take more risk that he's winning the fight, I'm going to make it to the scorecards. I have the backing, I have the fan base, and I'm going to make it a close fight, and I'm going to see if I can pull a W off the scorecards. Because to me, that's the best approach and the best way to get the victory. And then you look at Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor had the most unique circumstances because he was coming in bigger, he was coming in rangier. There was a bit of an unknown factor, which Logan Paul will have to a certain degree, of what can this guy do in the ring? Does he have any power? Is there, what is his approach going to be? There's a whole resume of Pacquiao out there, but there, in terms of Conor McGregor and Logan Paul boxing, there's not much. But Conor McGregor, think about this, was up in that fight against Logan Paul. He was up on the scorecards. He was landing punches. Conor McGregor was up on the scorecards and landing punches. Now, were those punches effective? No. Were they hurting Mayweather? No. Obviously, was Mayweather pulling a aggressive form of a rope-a-dope on Conor McGregor? Yes. Did Mayweather have full control of that fight? Did he know what he was doing? Yes. But nonetheless, let's say Conor McGregor was in phenomenal shape, boxing shape. Let's say that instead of the first few rounds being very aggressive and coming out trying to go for the knockout, he decides, you know what, I'm going to let Mayweather come to me. I'm the rangier guy. I'm not going to use my size to impose my will on him. I'm going to use my size to make Mayweather come through my offense. I'm going to box off the back foot. I'm going to stick and go. I'm going to be Mayweather in this fight. I'm going to be the defensive fighter. What happens if McGregor took that approach? What happens if he was in good shape? Because he did show moments in that fight to where he has the ability to box off the back foot and counter. McGregor did. You know, that uppercut hook I think he threw when Mayweather was walking recklessly in. No, it didn't hurt Mayweather. It didn't phase him. Mayweather ate that shit for lunch. But nonetheless, it was a beautiful combination. It was a beautiful idea. It was nice strategy and technique in terms of, well, nice strategy. I shouldn't say technique because it wasn't a very powerful punch, but it was a good strategic move. And it showed that McGregor did have the ability to counterpunch and fight off the back foot throughout that fight. But he went in there, he kind of threw the kitchen sink at him the first few rounds. There was moments he was very aggressive, and he wore himself out. He wore himself out, and he decided, I'm going to go out there and try to get the knockout instead of, you know what, I'm going to try to make it to the scorecards. I'm going to try to outbox Mayweather. I'm going to show the world I can outbox Mayweather or outpoint him. And look, if I make it to the scorecards, that's a victory in itself. I'm not a boxer. If I'm Conor McGregor, I'm not a boxer. You know, it's my first boxing match. You're the greatest of all time. You know, I'm not supposed to go 12 rounds with you. That's a victory in itself. And then you may be able to pull, even if it's not the most authentic win, you may be able to pull it off on the scorecards because you have the fan support. You know, he legitimately was landing. Here's the funny thing about that fight. Conor McGregor was probably one of the only fighters in the back end of Mayweather's career to land the most punches on him. A punch landed is a punch landed. It doesn't matter if it hurts your opponent, if it's fast, if it's powerful. A landed punch is a scored point. McGregor was up in that fight. What happens if McGregor boxed off his back foot the whole fight, made Mayweather come through his range, and was in phenomenal shape, and it gets to those late rounds, and he's not getting tired? You don't think Mayweather would have been like, holy shit, this guy's not getting tired. He's not getting fatigued. He's up on the scorecards. It's round 8. It's round 9. It's round 10. I'm going to have to do something drastic to win this fight. I'm going to have to put some pressure on this dude and really put it on him. He'd have been fucked in a certain sense if he took it to the scorecards. And then here's the thing. Here's where the height can turn into a huge, in the range can turn in, and the size can turn into a huge advantage. Mayweather, it was interesting in that fight because Mayweather applied pressure almost like a brawler. It was not like a Triple G type pressure or Julio Cesar Chavez type pressure, right? Or even a Canelo type pressure. You know, because when you watch guys like Canelo or Julio Cesar Chavez or Triple G putting pressure on their opponents, it's strategic, it's tactical, it's well thought out. You know, it's taken for granted, right? The aggression kind of masks the true skill of these guys and the technique. But when you watch like Triple G, he's cutting off the ring. He's attacking the body. You know, he has certain combinations laid out for certain positions in the ring. You know, he's sticking out his jab. You know, he has subtle, good defensive, has good defense and good head movement. Very subtle, right? And, you know, it's hard to have perfect defense when you're constantly walking your opponent down. You know, but nonetheless, those guys have very good defense. You know, they cut the ring off, they attack the body, they utilize their jab, and they wear their opponents out. Mayweather was applying pressure like a brawler. It was like, I'm just going to stalk. There's a difference between cutting the ring off and stalking your opponent. When you're stalking your opponent, you're following them around in circles, which is not really a good thing because when you stalk an opponent, you could get away with it depending on how skilled the guy across from you is. If he's a good boxer and knows how to box off his back foot, he's just going to time you every time you come in. He's going to be boxing, like they say, circles around you. But when you're dealing with a pressure fighter who applies pressure in a strategic manner, he's cutting off the ring. He's cutting off, you know, those exit routes for you. And he's attacking you to the body, and he's breaking you down. Mayweather just walked McGregor down because he knew McGregor couldn't hurt him, and he let McGregor hit him. But nonetheless, the way he was applying pressure, it didn't look good. Now, maybe, I don't know I know Mayweather can apply effective pressure because I saw him early on in his career. He was known as a pressure fighter, believe it or not. Go look it up. He's actually thought of as a knockout artist. He was like a Lomachenko. You know, he was in your face. You couldn't touch him. You couldn't hit him. And he was just tagging you with shots. And he would just, you couldn't do nothing with it. He was probably scarier than Lomachenko at the time. But the way he was applying pressure in this fight was very reckless. He was walking in. He wasn't really throwing his jab in an efficient way. Yeah, he used his jab to the body. But Mayweather was keeping a high guard and kind of walking and stalking McGregor down. And yes, he got away with it because McGregor is not a boxer. But I noticed that, and I'm wondering if Mayweather's going to apply that same philosophy to Logan Paul because he's the bigger, rangier fighter. Is Mayweather going to stalk Logan Paul? Is he going to walk in thinking, is he going to walk in recklessly with a high guard and not utilize his jab frequently, not cut off the ring? Because if so, Logan Paul has a very unique opportunity. Now, I was about to say, this was a 6-round exhibition, which would have gone in Logan Paul's favor. Huge. But now they turned into 8 rounds. Still, that still favors Logan in terms of getting to the scorecards. We all know Mayweather isn't, at this point in the career, a knockout artist. We know he's not that. And if he approaches this fight the same way he did with McGregor, I think Logan has a very unique opportunity here. And I liked what he said in one of his interviews. Logan Paul said, I'm a boxer. I'm not going to go in there looking for a knockout. I'm going to approach this strategically. Don't quote me off of that, but that's essentially what he was saying. Like, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to think. And I like that. I like that that's a good sign. Because Logan's very rangy, man. He's very tall and he's very big. If he uses that size, not to impose his will on Mayweather, but to keep Mayweather at the end of his punches. Make Mayweather come in. Keep your jab popping. Throw that cross. Make Mayweather come to you. Make him find the way to beat you. Make him find a way to get past your offense. And Logan, although I'm not crazy about his punching technique, and one thing I'm concerned about his cardio and conditioning, because yeah, he looks in great shape, but I saw him hitting the mitts in one of his workouts, hitting the mitts, hitting the bag, and it seemed like he was getting tired at points, especially hitting the mitts. It seemed like he needed a break at times. So if he's not in shape, he's fucked. It doesn't matter strategically what he does. He's completely fucked. So I hope that's not the case. Maybe he was, just pacing himself. But I'm concerned about his conditioning. And obviously he's carrying a lot of muscle that, you need oxygen to supply that muscle. But if Logan Paul is not in shape, there's no chance whatsoever. Zero. But if he does come in shape, and his boxing technique improved a little, I still don't like, it looks like he arm punches a lot. He's not really utilizing his lower body to get the power in it. But he has a lot of potential. I think he has more potential than his brother, but I do think his brother is the better boxer at this point. Logan's he's athletic, he's tall, he's big, he's built. But, I think it would take years for him to really recognize his potential in boxing. But nonetheless, man, if Mayweather takes that same approach he did with McGregor, Logan Paul can land some shots. They're not going to be hard. They're not going to be effective. But if Logan Paul says, hey, I'm going to box off my back foot, I'm going to get through all 8 rounds, that's a victory in itself, man. A YouTuber, a guy who's doing YouTube videos and 2 fights on his resume and lost both of them, made it all 8 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. And who knows, if Mayweather takes that same fucking approach he did with McGregor and he's just going to try to walk Logan Paul down and get him tired, and Logan Paul never gets tired, and Logan Paul does a good job of sticking and moving and keeping Floyd Mayweather at the end of his punches, that is the blueprint to give Logan Paul the best shot at winning. And who knows? That range could pose issues if it's used properly. That size can cause issues if it's used properly. It could. If Mayweather gets to those later rounds and he's trying to apply that rope-a-dope method and it ain't working and Logan Paul's still sticking and moving, it doesn't matter if those punches are hurting or not, man. If he's scoring, he's scoring. And who knows? Gets that 7th, 8th round, Mayweather's looking for a knockout. He may not be comfortable, man. He may be reaching. He may be putting himself in a very vulnerable position because of that size disadvantage, that superficial size disadvantage. And who knows if Logan Paul, look, I do think Logan Paul could land a good shot. I do. I think he's just good enough athletically and barely there technically in terms of his punching technique that he could land a good thudding shot. But in order to get that opportunity, you have to pull Mayweather out of his comfort zone. And you can't pull Mayweather out of his comfort zone if you just go in there and recklessly throw punches. Box him. Outbox the man. Try to. I know that sounds crazy. I know people are shaking their heads right now. But Logan Paul could possibly outpoint Mayweather and get him in an uncomfortable position to where he can take it to the scorecards. That's a victory in itself, man. Take your W where you can get it, Logan Paul. Now, at the end of the day, am I going to bet on this fight? No. Do I think Logan Paul's going to win? No. Do I think he's going to get fucked up? Most likely, yeah. It depends on Mayweather. Depends on what Mayweather wants to do. And that's the big question. What is Mayweather going to do? You know, what's he going to do in this fight? Is he going to go for the kill because his brother took his hat, Jake Paul took his hat, and he wants to punish his brother? Is he going to walk Logan Paul through? Is he going to approach it the same way he did with Conor McGregor? I don't know. This fight is going to be completely dictated by Mayweather. Now, if Mayweather goes in here like, I'm going to fuck this kid up, like, I'm going to go in here and actually box. Now, I'm not talking like what he did to McGregor. I'm talking about like Arturo Gatti shit. Like, to where he goes in there, or Diego Corrales, like, he's systematically going to box. Like, I'm going in there to fuck this guy up. Logan Paul will get severely hurt. But I don't think Mayweather's going to take that approach, because it kind of gave me a clue into his head when Mayweather said, I'm retired. He literally said, I'm retired, and he's taking a fight with Logan Paul. That gives you a clue that he's not taking this fight seriously, and he doesn't need to train for it. He even said, oh, I didn't train for this fight. I just went to the gym a couple times. So that's a good sign for Logan Paul. You want that. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I'm picking Mayweather. I think Mayweather's going to show you why he's Mayweather and why a guy with 2 fights has no business fighting a guy of this caliber. But nonetheless, there is, that small chance that the universe aligns up every once in a while for crazy shit to happen. And I think Logan Paul, or the planets align, right? The stars align in the solar system. The planets align every once in a while. I think the planets are aligning. And I think Logan Paul has a very, thin chance of pulling some crazy shit out of his ass. But he has to play it perfectly. It's like the window of opportunity for him is going to be very small little slither. It will be there, but can he take advantage of it? Most likely not, right? Even if he does execute the strategy I'm saying, Mayweather will probably find a way to adjust. And look, it's like walking on a tightrope. That's what it's gonna be like for him. He's gonna be literally walking on a tightrope if he does what I say, and he tries to execute that game plan. It's like walking a tightrope, and there's little room for error, but the opportunity will be there. There's that small slither of hope for Logan Paul to pull some shit out of his ass. Like I said, not in terms of knocking Mayweather out, of terms of getting the victory on the scorecards. Because it is a victory for him if he can just get to the scorecards. And with the fan base he's coming with, and being the underdog who everybody wants to see win, and, you know, coming in with kind of his superficial advantages of size, height, and range, dude. And he's just athletic enough. I seen him sparring with Paulo Costa. I like the way he was moving. You know, unfortunately, you know, he hasn't had enough time to develop and gain the experience to really make that an advantage for him in this fight. But like I said, he has a small window of opportunity and ability, just enough ability, because he might be just a little bit better than McGregor in terms of boxing, to pull some shit out of his ass. So that being said, I'd like to hear what y'all think about this fight. How should Logan Paul approach it? Do you think he stands any sort of a chance? I don't think he does, right? But I think he has a unique set of circumstances. Let me know down at the bottom. Peace and love, man. Can't wait to see this thing. It's going to be fun, and I'll make a video after the whole debacle goes down. Till another one, it's your boy HB with Fun Around. Get at me.